Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first after winter break, for the first episode of Go Big with Micha of 2023. I am super excited to have Natasha Marston with me today, and we are talking about finding your voice, building confidence as a woman of color. Such an important topic, and I can talk about it to you. So that's why I brought on an expert who can, because I know this is a topic super relevant to a lot of people who follow me, a lot of people I'm in contact with. So you have Natasha, and she will talk about this today. And before we dive in, I will tell you a little bit about Natasha. She is a certified professional coach and works with women of color, as I just said already, especially those who seek clarity and strategy to find their voice as they move through their career. She uses core energy coaching. We'll talk about that a little more maybe later, to help her clients uncover their true, authentic self so that they can become the leader of their own life, which is so hard, especially at a time like this or like the last couple of years where everything is
Mhm.
so out of control. Natasha knows the struggles of being a woman of color. She identifies as a first generation with immigrant parents from two different countries. So she truly understands the clash of cultures
Mhm.
and the push and pull of what you want, what is expected of you. I'm sure that sentence already resonates with pretty much everybody who's watching this. And her career was completely in tech and consulting in Silicon Valley. So she really understands the fast pace, the and always changing landscape of these industries. So for you women of color in tech out there, Natasha is the person to talk to. And she did her coaching training with the coach training program from IPAC, Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. She's a member of the International Coach Federation. And yeah, welcome, Natasha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Love the intro.
I am so happy to have you. So we are talking today about building confidence as a woman of color, finding your voice, and really using it to advance your career. So before we dive in, maybe tell us a little bit about how you define confidence.
Oh, I love this question. Um, so I'll tell you how I used to define it. I used to define confidence as a destination, as a
Mm-hmm.
place I will get to once I've achieved XYZ. Once I've gotten all the certificates, once I've had thousands of clients, millions of clients, then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be confident once I've hit all the titles. And over the last few years, I've decided to make confidence a choice. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choosing to believe that I have unique value in my journey, in what I've been through,
Yes.
in that this growth and this journey of opportunity, that's where the value is. And it's this like inherent trust in myself that whatever comes my way, because the future is unknown, I'll be able to handle it because I've done
Yeah.
hard things before. So I'm going to continue to be able to do
Exactly.
hard things. So,
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes on confidence, I think Oprah said it, is you do not become what you want, you become what you believe. So,
Yes.
choosing
I
to
love that
believe.
quote.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I
that's
am
me.
so with you. Confidence is indeed something you can choose and create for yourself.
Mhm.
And yeah, that is so important because it is not something we learn early on. Hmm?
No, no,
Nobody
not at all.
tells you that when you're young. So,
Mm-mm.
and I forgot to say actually, before we dive in any deeper, if you're watching this live, please comment. Please let us know if you have any questions. This is not necessarily a conversation between Natasha and me. I'm absolutely happy for you to chime in. Actually, I would prefer that. And if you watch the replay, still feel free to reach out to either Natasha or me or both of us. Yeah, we are absolutely happy to continue this conversation because it's an important one. So, uh, tell me a little bit about why this is such a cause so dear to your heart.
Oh, it's because it's me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of goes back to my own journey.
Mm-hmm.
In becoming a coach, I needed to figure out, who was the demographic that I wanted to serve. And I really struggled with that because I thought, okay, well, I'm an HR professional. I've worked in tech. What else defines me? What else am I truly an expert in? And when I really peeled back the layers, I realized everything that I am now is because of how I identify myself as a woman of color, as
Mm-hmm.
an individual working in America, working in tech. All these factors have contributed to the things that I fear, the things I worry about, but also the things that motivate me and propel me forward. And so when I would ask myself, who do I want to coach? I want to coach a younger version of me,
Yeah.
a young female, 5, 10 years ago who had no idea what she wanted because she couldn't find her voice. Her voice was stifled and suppressed by society and what was expected of her. And so that's why it feels so dear to me. It's because it is me, and I want to help people who are like me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That is really, I think that's where we all do our best work. We can help other people too, but this is where the real connection happens, right?
absolutely.
Um, we You've mentioned it, and I said it in the bio too. The expectations of society,
Hmm.
um, and I feel the pressure, especially if you're first generation. I mean, I didn't grow up in the U.S., but so I'm basically then that makes me zero generation American,
Hmm.
but an immigrant. But I am a white person with a master's degree from Europe, which we all know is different
Hmm. Hmm.
from the perspective of many immigrants. But I know, of course, a lot of women, professional women, uh, who are first generation, whose parents or maybe second generation grandparents immigrated. And the pressure of making it, of fulfilling the American dream
Yeah.
seems to be so incredibly high.
Hmm.
Is that something you see a lot too and feel?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm working with a client right now who has said those exact words. She wants to fulfill the American dream. It was a value that was ingrained in her by her parents, and it's something that she has actively pursued her entire education, her career now. And she sought me out because she was realizing I'm going to bed and I feel empty inside. I feel
Mm-hmm.
empty inside. I am dreading going into work every day. And I genuinely don't understand why. And so it was through a lot of deep exploration of understanding her values, understanding her strengths. We did a whole bunch of exercises, and she would look at her responses on the piece of paper and then reflect back on what she's done, how she's lived her life till now. And she's like, this is like two different people. And I had
Mm-hmm.
never understood that disconnect, that dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling that I have because I'm not living the life that is in true alignment with who I am authentically. And it gets lost. It gets lost because, when you migrate here and you want to achieve success and you don't make it, you pass it on to your kids. You
Right.
project that onto your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talk a lot about grief as well with my clients
Mm-hmm.
because what we're grieving is the fact that our parents had dreams too, and if they didn't make it, it's now up to you to kind of help f- fulfill their happiness, fulfill their goals. um, and you're kind of grieving that because that's
Mm-hmm.
really hard and that's too much to bear sometimes. And so yes, everything you said completely resonates, and it's very true for my clients.
Yeah. And I think that is a lot of the things you say is something many of us, even if we're not women of color, even if we're not like first generation, uh, understand. Like for especially the parents who pass on their dreams and this wish to make them happy, to fulfill the dream, and then realizing not everybody wants to be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor.
No.
I think those are specifically the three choices that seem to be the most popular with all parents of all ages, generations, and ethnicities. And not everybody wants to do that. And it's so hard to take that step back. And grief is a really good word here. I like that you use that word because there is a lot of grief in that process. How about the other word that comes up for me, and that I think is a specific experience, is code switching.
Absolutely.
Can you comment on that a little?
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, I liken myself to kind of be a chameleon, right? So my parents, my mother's Filipino, my dad is from Pakistan, and I'm American. So to code switch between three different cultures, it's almost like you never fully belong in any one of those spaces with family, with friends. You're either, too American when you go back and visit your parents' native country, and you're too foreign here. You're othered here. And so you seek that validation, you seek that acceptance by doing your best to fit in, by doing your best to assimilate, to adapt, to fit in these white institutions. And you lose yourself in the process. You lose your voice in the process. You start to become unsure of what you really want. But code switching, it's huge. Yeah. I mean, usually they refer to it as, languages. I only speak one language, unfortunately, but it could be, for exactly like changing your persona pretty much in order to fit in wherever you're at. And we, humans have this innate need to belong. We just want to belong, we want to feel loved. We want to feel seen. But you have to ask yourself, what is that really costing you? I always like to challenge my clients on what is it costing you to continue to live a life inauthentically? So yes, code switching is huge.
Yeah. And you just gave me the segue because authenticity is the word I wanted to throw into this conversation next. Because on the one hand, there is a lot of talk about bringing your whole self to work. And on the other hand, there is surely the idea, do I need to? So that might be a bit of a generational divide here too.
Yeah.
But authenticity, am I authentic when I keep too much back? How much authenticity do I want to bring? Should I bring to my work environment? We spend a lot of time at work, so that's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
What is your take on that authenticity maybe versus intention, agency? Where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, I think it's important to be intentional about, who you are at work, but it's kind of hard to hide who you are at work and to be someone else in your personal life. I was teaching a course and someone made a comment and it was kind of out of left field. And his response was, "Oh, I just forgot where I was for a second." And I thought that comment was so interesting. Like, okay, so what does that really mean? Like, are you performing at work? And then finally, when you're at home, you can kind of peel back again the layers and reveal who you really are. I don't know if that's very sustainable. I think as we continue to grow and evolve as a society, as a generation, to me, bringing your whole self to work is so crucial. I mean, I can't imagine kind of being one way here and being one way there. I feel like I've kind of lived that life and that it hasn't worked for me. So I think it depends on the person, always. It depends on what you value. Authenticity is a huge value of mine. So I think it really depends. It depends on your values, what you're comfortable with. But in my opinion, not very sustainable. So
yeah. And I think there are, of course, topic sides of you that you don't need to share explicitly. I don't know. I mean, I tell people you don't even want to know what kind of a helicopter dog mom I am. Which is more like a funny example, of course. But
Yeah.
there are, of course, that also accounts for more serious issues, more serious topics in your life. But there
Mhm.
is a question at what point you at least want to share it, maybe with a coworker, maybe with a trusted manager,
Yeah.
whatever safe space you have at work, just to say,
Mhm.
okay, there is a part of me that I'm not very comfortable sharing here, but I want one person to hold that space for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that something that makes sense?
I think so. Absolutely. I mean, they talk about, in those employee engagement surveys, one of the most important ones is that you feel like you have a best friend at work. You
Mm-hmm.
feel that you have someone that you can trust, that you can go to when you're having a bad day, when you really want to share your opinion about something, but you're like, does this teeter on unprofessional? I just need someone to bounce back. I need a sounding board. So absolutely. I think knowing the lines of professionalism and unprofessionalism is key, but having a person that you trust, that you can share, that can kind of validate your experience, that can give you advice, that can give their opinion on something. I think that's also key in being able to bring your whole self to work, and just to kind of check yourself, make sure, like, is what I'm thinking about this wrong? Or, should I be thinking about it differently? Should I say something? Should I not say something? Um, yes, I think having that trusted confidant at work is great.
Yeah. Actually, the the story that comes to mind, last week I listened to the audiobook of Michelle Obama's new book.
Yeah.
And of course, nowadays we would all love to trust Michelle Obama with all our stories, of course. But
Amazing.
the story she shares is about a young woman of color who worked for her in the White House, and only when she left and stayed on with her after the Obamas left the White House, years in, so to speak, she shared she made an appointment, despite the fact that they saw each other every day as her
Mhm.
being an assistant. She made an appointment with Michelle Obama to tell her the story that as a young girl, she grew up with an incarcerated father
Wow.
for many years of her childhood or preteen life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and that is such a story, very dramatic side of like, wow, nobody knew that for so many years of those people
Mhm.
you work so close together. This is so hard
Mhm. Mhm.
to carry that burden and all the all the ways around childhood experiences,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
think that's a very, very touching and impressive example where we all see it's so important that we create that safe space, that
Mhm.
people trust at least one person with their
Mhm.
story.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about psychological safety, and
Hmm.
being able to create that on teams and in
Yeah,
workplaces, because, vulnerability takes courage. And if there's a risk of being ridiculed or ostracized or blamed or
yeah,
shamed, nothing's going to be shared.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a powerful example of, clearly she trusted Michelle, and she made this, intentional effort to share
yeah,
something that was
yeah,
dear and close to her heart. So
yeah.
yeah.
Um, you have a background in HR, so I I want to ask about the systemic, the really the social framework, because yes, unfortunately, a lot of the work is back with the individual,
Hmm.
but being marginalized, of course, is a systemic and a structural issue first of all.
Yeah.
So, what have you seen? What's your experience, and how do you support those efforts? How, yeah,
Yeah. Well, the first thing is obviously unconscious bias. That's always the hot, topic. It's the word, and it's
yeah,
so true. I mean, I think that's what's, rampant across organizations. The big
yes,
one, I think, is affinity bias. So it's the one
hmm,
where, you want to hire people that that are like you, that you could, grab a drink with. And what happens? So I think the statistic is, Asian Americans or Asian American women are the least likely to hold management and C-suite roles. And so what happens is,
which is incredible.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
wild. I think the exact
yeah.
stat, and I'm forgetting where this is from. It could be from Harvard Business Review or something, but I think white women hold 32% of total management positions in the US. And then Asian women hold 2%, Black women hold 4%, Latino women hold around 4% as well. So it's really low, right? There's clearly that.
And probably when we distinguish by size of the company, all those numbers go lower again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yes, please continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. And it's despite the fact that when they survey Asian women, Black women, and Latino women, they have the highest numbers of wanting to reach those levels more than their white counterparts, and yet they're not getting the roles. So you have to ask yourself, this is happening across the board. What is really happening?
Yeah.
And I think there are a few things. I think when affinity bias, continues and goes unchecked, you'll start to see kind of the informal networks that form that women of color are missing out on, right?
Mhm.
It's, come to happy hour. Well, I don't really want to go to happy hour if I'm going to be the only Asian girl there. I don't really, that's just uncomfortable. Now I have to continue to show this face that I've done from 8 to 5. I really don't want to do that from 5 to 7. So you're missing out on these informal networks to connect. And you can't blame the individual because it's a hard thing to be a part of all the time. They're missing out on, really meaningful sponsorship and mentorship, because if you're not being represented at the top, who can you really look up to that makes it feel possible that you can get there, right? So representation is really huge. So I think checking for these, especially around performance reviews, feedback sessions. I want to shout out to the disruptors, where our good friends Alexandria and Desleen, they have these talks. I feel like almost every week on bias, on discrimination, on all those things. But it's especially important because in the performance review process, right, it's easy to have that group think, right, to all just start to agree with one another, to not challenge each other. So it's important to have checks there. And to also note kind of the social conditioning. So one thing that I was reading was about the modesty mandate. And a lot of Asian women, being modest is a cultural expectation. It's a value. And you'll see, despite that they're trying to get rid of that in the workspace, knowing that, the squeaky oil gets the wheel, or the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When that happens, they still struggle to put themselves out there in their performance evaluation. So they're bringing that modesty in how they're talking about themselves, and how they're, sharing their achievements. And so it's checking for those things. It's meeting people where they're at. It's being intentional around mentorship, around sponsorship. It's being intentional about inviting someone in and saying, no, I want you to be there. So there's so many different things that you can do, outside of performance achievement, but it's creating that trust. So.
Yeah. And I mean, performance achievement is usually the least worry with women of color, right? Because they work at work, and they put in the work. They have to perform.
Oh, yes.
We know that all the statistics show that. I read something recently, and that was a new idea to me. Wonder what you think of it. If so, you probably have a better view on that. If promotion cycles, like especially in tech, in those big tech companies, weren't opt in but opt out, that would benefit women in general and women of color. And I thought that was a very interesting idea. So that you're automatically considered as a person who wants a promotion until you say, not this year.
Yeah. I love that.
Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah. Because like I said, most women of color do want those positions. They're just not invited to get to that level. So, yeah, that's really interesting. You're opted in until you decide to opt out.
Yeah. And I mean, there are of course, tons of occasions that might want you to opt out
Mm-hmm.
in a certain year, in a certain time period.
Yeah.
But generally, you're in, and
Yeah.
I really love the idea. I
Mm-hmm.
think that could really change the structure, because then you take this extreme humbleness, modesty element out of the equation, for at least for a certain part.
Yes. Yes. And then you leave the choice up to the individual. Let them
Yeah,
decide. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
And I mean, you mentioned being shamed earlier, and I always feel like shame is like the lowest vibe emotion of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, let me segue a little bit into the energy work you're doing, because I find that very interesting. I had the pleasure of being in one session where you led this type of work. So
Yes.
I would absolutely love for you to share what that involves, because there's so many different types of energy work.
Energy.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I found
Well,
your approach, the approach of your coaching school, so interesting. So
yes. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So it's I'm an energy leadership index master practitioner. I know that's a very long, long statement, but energy work is foundational to the coaching school that I graduated from, IPEC. And essentially what it is, it's an attitudinal assessment. So the energy leadership index, whereas, there's a ton of personality tests out there, right? There's MBTI and all those things that kind of make you feel like you're in a box, right? They're labeling you,
yeah,
and then you think to
yeah.
yourself, is my personality ever going to change? I don't know. And you only really
That's why I
have,
don't like them.
yeah, exactly. You have
Yeah,
like 16 options, 16
yeah,
variations. No one likes to be pigeonholed. So this is an attitudinal assessment. So this measures your attitude, and your attitude is something you can change all the time. And it's essentially measuring how you view the world, what your filters are that you have when you are met with stress, when you are met with a trigger. What is your natural response?
yeah,
Because when you are able to shift your perspective, to rise up in energy levels, in vibrational levels, you are able to get more out of life. You're able to see the opportunities. It's essentially getting out of the fight or flight mode, out of, the surviving mode, and really into thriving mode. And I think that's something I highlight throughout my coaching is all the stories that we've told ourselves, all the limiting beliefs that we've inherited. It was to get us through childhood, young adult life, because we had to survive that. But we're adults now with full agency, with full power. So what's the story that you want to believe, right? What do you, or how do you want to live, and who do you want to be? And so through the energy leadership work that I do, I explain the two types of energy: the energy that breaks you down, that's destructive, that literally generates those hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, keeps you in fight or flight. And then there's anabolic hormones, or anabolic energy. And the hormones that are being created are the ones that literally rebuild your tissue, that regenerate cells. So this is all measured. This is all through a metric. You can reevaluate it in the future. But it takes, intentional awareness. It takes the commitment to want to reshape your attitude and your own belief system. So I love it. I offer it with all my clients to do an assessment, just to see where they're at and see where the opportunities are.
I was really impressed. I was very interested in the one session I was a part of, because I am not a big fan of standardized assessments.
Yeah, no.
Just for that reason, that being my age, I know that yes, in a certain way, I'm still that person I was 30, 40 years ago, 50, maybe 50. I don't know. No memories of that time. But of course, in a certain way, I'm still that person, but in so
Yeah.
many other ways, I'm totally not that person. And
Mm-hmm.
even the fact that I have been gone from Germany permanently for 10 years now, and when I talk to my old friends, they know a different me,
Yeah.
right? Because if you
Yeah.
make big changes in your life, sometimes it doesn't matter. With really old friends, with family that loves you unconditionally, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But with a lot of other people, it does matter. And it matters for you to have that, just even the mental and emotional freedom to decide who you are.
Yeah. I mean,
So
if we're not
that's
changing, it's like, well, what is life if we're not changing, right? I mean, that's why that quote, you have friends for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So sometimes you have friends that aligned with the old you, and then you have new friends who align with the new you. And that's fine too. But yes, I'm a bigger fan of this attitudinal assessment. I'm a huge fan of the Clifton Strengths Assessment. I love that, using positive psychology to help propel you forward, and those change all the time too. So yes, love
those
assessments.
change. I do the Clifton Strength, like I think every 5 or 10 years, and
love
some
it.
some stay on, and others just change.
Yeah, me too.
And so it's fun. I enjoy it because it doesn't really matter what comes out of it. It just it's just a little, is that really how I feel about this now? What has changed? It's really kind of like a reflection tool that I use for myself. So I don't feel bogged down by that. Like some of the others, Myers-Briggs is something, I'm a huge opponent of Myers-Briggs. The first time I did that, the person who administered it told me, oh, you're the personality type that people thought Hitler might have been.
I remember you telling me that. Still
Yeah.
terrible.
I'm like, seriously?
That's
This
awful.
is what you tell me? Okay. So that was the end of Myers-Briggs for me.
Yeah.
But
no.
Just, I wish we could have a magic wand and really allow people, especially women and especially marginalized women, to explore who they want to be and really strive for that.
Yeah. I think a big piece of it is they don't feel like they have permission, right? I think your whole life you've kind of been told that you don't have a choice. And so you have to do the work, a lot of, just reflection and analysis of how you got to where you're at. And you have to give yourself permission. You have to trust in yourself that you know who you are. You don't need to rely on another person's ideals or deferring to other people, but you're powerful on your own. You are in charge of your own life. You are responsible for your own happiness. But it's taking a lot of things into account, like we've talked about, grief and everything.
Yeah, and it can be very, very hard work.
Oh yes, so hard. But lifelong work.
That's why you want support. That's why it is fabulous to have a coach like Natasha in your corner when you do that work, because we all see that sometimes we make progress like crazy. It's like, I'm good. And 2 weeks later, it's like, oh my God, no, totally not. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's why coaches have coaches usually.
Should
have. And if you want to reach out to Natasha, where can people find you most easily?
Yes, you can come to my LinkedIn. That's already available. My website is Natasha Marston side coaching.com. I know it's a bit long, but my website is within my bio on LinkedIn, and it's under my contact information as well. So you can either send me an email or you can submit a form request on my website. But I look forward to hearing from anyone that this resonated with. So
please, people, get in touch with Natasha. She's a wonderful person to know. And I am absolutely sure she's a wonderful coach to work with too. And I am going to see you next week with another coach I love. So please be back then. And if you're interested in what I'm doing, I just have group spots open. So talk to me about that if you want a combination of one-on-one and group coaching, because that's starting for me right now. And I would love to talk to you about that too. All right. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your kindness with us. And I hope to see everybody soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.